All right, let's get into our discussion for this evening. It's been a busy news week from President Cyril Ramaphosa's surprise cabinet reshuffle to the deportation of Chris Hani's killer, Janusz Waluz. MK party spokesperson Nhlamulo Ndhlela has also been announced really that he is stepping down as a member of parliament so he can focus on the party. All that and a lot more that we discuss this evening with Central University of Technology political analyst Dr. Bernad Sebake, who joins us via video link. And in studio, we're joined by columnist and social commentator Donovan Williams. How are you, Donovan?
I'm good. How are yourself?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Sebake, good evening to you too. I think I'll start with you, Dr. Sebake. I think one of the big stories certainly for the week is without a doubt the surprise reshuffle this week that we saw, your view on really what we think is coming after that reshuffle. Many saying it's not really a reshuffle, really a swapping around of roles in human settlements, and then for the two deputy ministers as well in the other departments.
Well, thanks very much, firstly, to invite me. And my 2 cents to it really dealt with 2 vantage points. Firstly, I struggle to really divorce myself from the public sphere and just necessarily focus on the experience of the affected ministers. If you look at the minister who now is at the human settlement, the minister herself is vasted in terms of experience of local government. And to a large extent, she has been a president of Salga. At the time, she was a mayor at Polokwane, a local municipality. And one of the key achievements there is that she had performed very well, and service delivery was at the peak. And that reshuffle reminds me of a story that I think the area of human settlement that have been very stagnant required somebody of that caliber with that experience who will then be able to really improve service delivery with regard to human settlement that has backlog in terms of really resettling our people. However,
this is interesting because
that has to do with
because I'm stepping in here, Dr. Sebake, because this is the perspective that I think perhaps hasn't been shared before, considering just the cloud of controversy that follows Minister Thembisi Melani with the alleged links to VBS and loans, and then an expose as well by other journalists saying that this woman may have benefited a lot more than just even that 500,000 rand.
Let's get into that controversy now to say, I think for me, then this reshuffle and position as Melani in this new post is just a mechanism of buying time in order to be seen as if really she's been moved from a critical position of constitutional justice and constitutional development, which for me, it has nothing really to do with really taking corrective measures around this matter. And I've always been saying that one of the fundamental challenges in politics, particularly in keeping discipline, is what we call political correctness. If it was somebody who is not necessarily closer to the leading elite, who is helpful in the achievement of the objectives of the current elite, would have perhaps been requested to step aside.
Okay.
ANC Integrity Commission would have reined in fast with recommendations that are tailor-made to actually get rid of that person.
Okay.
So I just think it's a spiral of really a marking time, if you like.
Yeah, Donovan, let me let you step in here. I mean, that's interesting because you've got a Dr. Sebake saying, wow, from a delivery point of view, there's something positive, and you know, the move to human settlements, a good one, perhaps.
Look, there's two ways you look at cabinet reshuffles. The one way is you zoom into the people, the actual individual persons. And one of them, for instance, I think is a really good cabinet reshuffle, is really had made a positive impact, despite whatever is Judith Namazinga Shabalala. She's been moved to labor or employment. She was doing excellently well with small miners and so forth, black miners and that. And I think she'll bring a good energy to labor. It's linked as well with the Labour Inspectorate and so forth, as 100%. We can see when we go on later, when we talk about spaza shops and community issues and stuff like that. So I think those are like, there's some positive things. But the other aspect of a cabinet reshuffle is speaking to the society, speaking to the public. The president has to always take into account that when he does a cabinet reshuffle, he's talking to the people about what he thinks should be done and what are important. And you can't run away from the controversy that the former Minister of Justice has been put under when that's come out in the media from the Daily Maverick and others, and they're zoning in onto it. It's part 1 of 3, apparently, that is going to. So the ANC has issued a statement, and they wouldn't have issued that statement and spoke to it if that controversy is not real. Yeah. The president, with this cabinet reshuffle, unfortunately, has not quietened the controversy. He's actually opened it up even more. And because you need to speak clearly, because the ANC knows, the president knows, or should know, that communities in general, people in general, are worried about corruption. And they expect a high level of ethics from our leaders, or rather, they may be not expecting a high level of ethics. And is he playing into that by not dealing with it or acting like he's dealing with it? So I think that's the difficulty the president has. The difficulty the president has, though, as a society, we haven't been consistent. That when he has acted against certain individuals for corruption or anything, when those individuals politicize the matters and they take it up, they get support from the ground against it. So he's always between a rock and a hard place. It's a matter of how assertive he is and how does society also reflect and react. We as society need to take responsibility as well. When action is taken against certain people that are corrupt, we don't come out in support of the president or anybody else for that matter. The noisemakers, the ones who are loud, we can see it when the digital vibes thing happened with the former Minister of Health. Nobody came in support thereafter to say, well done, Mr. President, etc. He became a candidate for the presidency in the ANC, for that matter. So these are the things that we need to empathize with the president, but we also need the president to understand that everyone is looking at him when he makes these cabinet reshuffles. He has to speak to it. And I don't think he has, quite honestly.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask a little bit earlier, and I did, in fact, with the Dr. Sebake, is what's to come of this, right? I mean, one of the sort of explanations that we've heard as well has been that, well, the reshuffle also allows for investigations or work done by the NPA, for instance, to take place without that issue of, you know, Thembi Simelane being able to influence the work of law enforcement.
I think the way, I mean, that's feeble, because the way our justice system is constructed, the minister can't interfere in an investigation. She wouldn't, even if the investigation is against herself, for that matter. So we know that. We know that the former Minister of Housing or Urban Settlements is a very, very talented individual, Minister Kubai. She's very talented on very, very levels, many levels. We've all seen that. We've witnessed that. She may bring a good energy. Justice itself is underfunded, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of matters of, because you've got an independent arm that must take care of its own money, and how do you do that whilst at the same time government is responsible for its resources, and it can't just allow the NPA to run itself with its own resources, or even the judges, etc. So those are some of the difficulties. The matter, though, which I will repeat and I will continue to repeat, that the president and the ANC need to be a little bit more clearer. For instance, part of that reshuffle did not include errant ministers that have defied the president, or the Minister of Basic Education, who is a DA minister. So we understand there's a government of national unity, or, you know, a coalition government. We understand that. Why you could get anybody from the DA, for that matter, to say, but the person you have sent is defying cabinet, is defying the president. So there are calls as well to say, but you reshuffled, you moved this, but you haven't dealt with this. And this is the difficulty the African National Congress has and the president has. They are not being assertive enough on what they're really going to do or will do on corruption, what they are doing to change themselves, to renew themselves, and lastly, what they're doing boldly to change what's happening in our country currently. It's that boldness and assertiveness that doesn't come out from this cabinet reshuffle. The opposite comes out. The opposite comes out is that we are overcautious.
Yeah, and you know, you obviously bring up Minister Siviwe Gwagube, and that was actually one of the big talking points. You know, you've got the leader, John Steenhuisen, who's come out and said that there's, and Dr. Sebake, perhaps we give this one to you. John Steenhuisen saying there's a faction in the ANC that is pushing for the president to fire the basic education minister, Siviwe Gwagube, and saying that that would bring about the collapse of the government of national unity. Is this a president who's stuck between a rock and a hard place here?
Beginning, if you realize the establishment of a government of national unity and the sudden appointment of the ministers or the cabinet, there has been tussles in the corners of the communities, and in particular, the SACP, COSATU structures and SATU itself. And this is a continuation of the very same, rambling in that corner. And of course, I agree. The ANC's tested over this one because precisely if they decide to really release the minister Gwagube, they will have to get a thorough reason as to why they do that, because the challenges of education in this country have not started now with the minister. They have been there. Why have we not seen minister, the former minister Nhlamulo being fired because of similar contribution of the challenges of education that is not responsive to the material conditions of society? So I think it is wild challenge over the president to really remain on his trenches and remain fair to the government of national unity that has mandated them to formulate government.
Yeah, but there's the issue of decisiveness, and you keep talking about this, right? How do you show that you're decisive with this Bella Act issue and Siviwe Gwagube, and then this teetering of, wow, remove Gwagube and that's the collapse of government of national unity?
And I think that's what the voting in our elections, the number of people that didn't vote speaks to that. And that's why all I'll say is that our society as a whole are disappointed in our leadership across the board, not just political leadership, religious leadership, business leadership, media leadership, etc. We have overcomplicated matters. That's what we sound like. We sound like a society that is so different. That's why it goes to Janusz Waluz, for that matter. That we so badly want a constitutional state. We so badly want, fairness and justice, and everything comes out just unjust. It just comes out unfair. That we say to ourselves, but this guy has never ever admitted to killing Chris Hani properly. He's never said who all he's really worked with, etc. And now he's on his way to a hero's welcome in Poland. Like, are South Africans silly? That's what we ask ourselves. So it's this lack of assertiveness to be South African. Why is it so difficult for us to just be South African? We're loud, we make a noise, we laugh a lot, we all of this, but we're also serious. We also can be innovative, and we're not seeing this. And we want our president in particular, who has shown that he can, to be that type of person, but we are not seeing that. And I think that is why we go into December now a little sad that we haven't had a good year.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring up Janusz Waluz, of course, the man that killed the former SACP leader, Chris Hani, being deported on Friday and sent back to his home country in Poland. And my question really was, I suppose you've already answered it, Donovan, and so, Dr. Sebake, I'll give this to you. As we watched, the images of, him departing OR Tambo Airport, for instance, did you get a sense that you know, in all these years that justice was served, that this brings closure to the country over the death of Chris Hani?
Well, this is a very sensitive matter to the people of South Africa. And generally, as we deal with whether justice has been served, the man has been taken to jail and has served his time. And to a large extent, he has been given parole. Now he has been deported to his where he comes from in Poland in order to serve his parole there. I think the only fundamental challenge to us as South Africa, as my my panel list, my colleague in this panel indicate, is that I think there are two issues that competing in me. When when the public outrage on whether justice is served is actually who killed Chris Hani. And I think that this is a matter that is really still being, everyone is still scratching the walls in order to find out who actually got involved in this sensitive matter that has not been resolved thus far. And I think if this issue has been resolved to that large extent, South Africans and of course including the family would have found a very bigger closure. But to the extent we are today, we ought to accept that the man has served his jail term and is now on parole, and justice has been served. It is not like as if he has never even served any jail term. And maybe an inquest to that extent can liberate that question of who pulled the trigger.
Sure, that's really interesting. I mean, there's the question of who pulled the trigger. I'm guessing that you mean as well who instructed for Chris Hani to be killed. But I wanna move on to this one. If we look at just the cabinet reshuffle and we go back to that, right? And you touched on the deputy ministers moving from the DMRE to Labour and vice versa. And I think now to Stilfontein that we've been watching for weeks on end, Donovan. And then this week as well, Sabi hits the news rundown, and you immediately get a sense of how we might actually be seeing more and more of this. You know, in a conversation with the Mining Forum this week, one of the things he talked about is that we have close to or well over 30,000 illegal miners in this country. And it's almost hard actually to make sense of when you consider the fact that at that one mine in Stilfontein, we were possibly looking at 4,500. So the numbers actually don't add up. And I wonder if we have the right skills and tools to deal with a problem as big as what illegal mining certainly has become, when we get to a point where we're now rescuing illegal miners as well.
Look, we don't have an illegal miners problem. We have a crime problem on every level within our country. In our communities, we feel unsafe. You're scared to walk around on the streets. No one is inspecting businesses, how they work, who's working, etc. You know, you don't even have people coming, knocking on your door, asking you if you have a TV license anymore, right? People are scared to let anybody come and check their electricity meter, for that matter. We have a serious crime problem. So, of course, you will have illegal miners and illegal workers. You'll have all of this. And at the same time, and I'm reminded back, and I wasn't born then, but I read the stories about in 1955 in Kliptown that Mandela was banned. Nelson Mandela, our founding president, he was banned. And so he disguised himself, and he went around on Kliptown on the square when they were adopting the Freedom Charter, where they're discussing. He disguised himself, and he started to hear what people were saying. I'd like to challenge, you know, our leaders. Disguise yourselves without your blue lights. Walk in our communities. See what is going on in our townships. You will be shocked. You'll be shocked if you went into many of us in Gauteng are going to go to the coast. We're going to think we are in heaven compared to what our cities look like inland, what Mangaung looks like, what Polokwane looks like, that you can't walk around, what Johannesburg CBD or Randburg right here looks like. And this is scary. We have a real big crime problem. the South African National Civic Organization, for that matter, on the 12th of December, and I hope Newzroom Afrika would be there, is marching to the union buildings. On this matter, on crime, on the zamazamas, on the lack of goods being checked, on spaza shops, on unemployment, and on foreigners, even for that matter. On the 12th of December, they are marching because these matters are all interlinked. The illegal miners, and we mustn't run away, is linked to the sentiments against foreigners in our country, it's particularly foreigners from our continent. You know, they sentiments, it's linked to that. So the unfeeling you get about it is not just because it's illegal, but because we think we are being robbed. We think we are being robbed. That's what it is. And so therefore you have this unfeeling. But once again, I'm sorry to use the word, government needs to be a lot more decisive. All right? Not cold, not seen without a heart, but they're not decisive on what they're going to do about it.
What would be decisive?
One of the things that can be done, for example, is to say, we are coming down and you're all being arrested. It's not about rescuing, right? You're all being arrested. We are going, of course, if you hurt, if somebody's committed a crime and they've been shot in the process, they get hospital care, right? So you've got to be assertive. You've got to say, we are going in and we're removing you, or, you know, and things that now you hear that there's R1 million a day being spent on the site. But then you compound and you say, but there's so many other areas. And this is where the Chamber of Mines needs to come in. They have benefited, their owners, their members, have benefited from mining. They don't rehabilitate these mines and the environments. They don't work with communities to do that. They don't provide jobs. The Chamber of Mines cannot get on scot-free from this. It's their disused mines that is being illegally mined. They cannot say that's not their responsibility, it's the responsibility of government. And they have benefited. You know, the TRC, I think we're on the anniversary of this, where business came to the TRC and said they were victims of apartheid. White business came to the TRC and
said they were victims.
They said they would have made more money if it wasn't for apartheid because of sanctions. That's how audacious a background and history we have. So these zamazamas, you ask what, the Chamber of Mines must come to the party and assist government. Communities must also assist. But there is this decisiveness that you can, if you put your heads and you work together, you will. The ANC's election slogan was, together we can do more. It's actually precise, because that's exactly what it is in that regard. And I know I sound like I'm pleading and so forth, but the truth of the matter is we have the leadership who can do this. Yeah. But they need to be leaders.
Yeah, the question's been asked a few times by some pundits and said, well, where is the voice of Gwede Mantashe in all of this? What is it that he should be saying, Dr. Sebake?
Well, look, I'm sitting here asking myself a very technical question, which I would be expecting from the minister. The first thing is that in the area where the mining is conducting its business, when they leave after they have completed their mining, is the closure being conducted properly to an extent that anyone without those sophisticated machines won't be able to really resuscitate those shafts? That's the first question that the minister should be able, when he address all his constituencies in Daba, to be asking this critical question. Because, I mean, and I agree with my fellow panel member that a crime is a crime. We create this impression that the issue of illegal mining, it's a very special kind of a crime. It's a crime. It's all exacerbation of what you call an unequal society we're experiencing. It shows us the deepening of the inequalities, unemployment, and poverty. That is worsening in terms of the statistics that are being revealed on a regular basis. And therefore, lack of innovation and strategies on the ground to address that will eventually get into these kind of activities that are really weakening our economy, because in one way or the other, they are not contributing anything to the GDP. They are weakening the economy in such a way that, and also they are really weakening our security points. They are actually then saying to the investors that we've got a country that is not also, to a large extent, not safe to invest in.
Yeah. Very concerning. And I want to actually just close off with one other big story. This one hitting us over the weekend, in fact. MK Party spokesperson Nhlamulo Ndhlela resigning as a member of parliament in due course, they say. This is to focus on party activities. What do you make of that, Donovan, as we wrap up the big story? And I imagine that more will unfold as we keep getting into this. But the MK Party, what do you think is cooking there?
Look, you know, the MK Party, I don't know if it's a party or if it's the way the constitution is constructed. It's constructed around a single individual, and the individual says that he's there to save his previous party, but which is a member of still. So the MK parties will continue to have a lot of musical chairs, I think, over time, because it depends on the whims of an individual. And that's sad, that a political party which has a substantial support depends on the whim of a single person. And so it's not that we mustn't take it seriously, but decisions do not seem to go through a filter or any way whatsoever. So you're going to always be getting stories. By the way, just to let you know that in this week, for that matter, the Nelson Mandela Foundation has taken government to court on land reform. Now, that's a bigger issue. That's a bigger issue, because the land issue is an issue that is really, it's linked to everything in that way. So I thought I'll bring that as well. But to say that, I'll go back, bookend this, that we need assertiveness and decisiveness, and then only you will get innovation from that. We need to put ourselves under pressure. Yeah. We don't put ourselves under pressure. We navigate it to make it seem like we are doing something when we are doing very little, when the problems are enormous and they get compounded every day. Yeah, but I can tell you this, we are going to reach out to the Nelson Mandela Foundation because we've been watching that one very close as well. I'm really keen to hear, you know, what their reasoning is, and then hoping as well to speak to the Minister for Land Reform, of course, Naledi Moleo, who for years campaigning has been saying this is what we need, land reform. Now he's tasked with actually executing that. How difficult is it? But we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure as we wrap up the week's activities. Donovan Williams, social commentator and columnist, Dr. Bernad Sebake, political analyst with the Central University of Technology in the Free State.